This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
So hi and welcome to another edition of the Away End. I am today joined by Luke Watson from the Trotter Chatter podcast, for all those Bolton Wanderers fans out there that are also tuning in. So we're going into Tuesday's game against Bolton after the back of a great 3-1 result against Lincoln at the weekend. After slipping behind after 33 seconds, the boys in blue came back to get on top of Lincoln in the second half, scoring some great goals during the game. And yet again, a sellout away following having a party atmosphere. So on to Tuesday evening of what is going to be another raucous atmosphere at St Andrews at Knighthead Park. And hopefully, he says, another 3 points over the line, but I'm sure Luke will have something else to say about that. So, Luke, thanks a lot for joining. Tell us a little bit, first of all, about the Trotter Chatter podcast and a bit of an introduction on yourself.
Yeah, well, I can't take much credit for the Trotter Chatter podcast. I mean, Ryan and the guys who are behind it are fantastic. And the good thing about it is it's definitely more of an honest view rather than some other podcasts you can find who don't really seem to give the true opinions. So, and really the way it came around for me joining was the whole point of their podcast was getting the fans' views, and then they kind of, with myself last of all, with a few others before me, ones they've found and really liked the views and the chemistry, and then they brought them on board. So in a way, it's really testament to what the podcast is about, that they just took random fans and made them part of this team, and we all get on really well. And at the moment, we are sharing the lows, but we do share some highs as well from time to time.
Indeed, and I think similar to Birmingham's record, really, Bolton as a club really having those highs, the highs of the Premier League, the lows of the division and the system and ways and workings of the club at this present moment. But overall, the one thing I can say is, we've both been through some fantastic games when we have come up against each other, and the record overall actually is a lot closer than I first thought it was going to be. So take us back, really. Bolton 36 wins against Birmingham. We've had 24 draws when we've played each other, and Birmingham have gone on to win 27 games. So actually, overall, yes, you boys are ahead, but actually remarkably close and balanced over the many years. And I look back at the past 5, it just shows that it's 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses. So it's perfect from that front as well. So it does go into a balanced game. And obviously for yourselves, I mean, you're coming to St Andrews at Knighthead Park, and the last time we actually met, you beat Birmingham 1-0. So you must be looking forward to Tuesday evening, and trying to sneak another result. But tell me a bit about Bolton this season. Then what happened during the summer? What can we expect from the team? The highs, the lows of the season so far, and then also tell us a bit about your structure of your team and how you tend to play, where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are.
Yeah, well, it's really weird because as a Bolton fan, it kind of already feels like we've had a full season, despite only playing like 9, 10, 11 games. So it started off in the summer thinking we've actually recruited really well. I mean, the first few signings was something I think every Bolton fan wanted. It was coming up with cover for injured players and having that depth. And then we had the flashy signings. We've had Sean, who's our left wing back. He's really a left winger, but being sort of transitioning into that left wing back position, and is so good on his day. But obviously then you've got the defensive flaws that come with it. We've signed some good depth in midfield. But we started quite well. I mean, that 2-1 against Leyton Orient, where last season we lost, and then all of a sudden things just kind of looked to be going off the path, really. I mean, we've had a few results where things we just can't explain are happening, and like losing at home to Exeter. If you go back last season, we beat them 7-0 at home and then lose 2-0 at home the next season. It's just baffling, really. And I think a lot of people and I speak probably for the majority of Trotter Chatter in the Bolton community, is I think Ian Evatt has done as much as he can for us, but it's just a case of maybe now, and especially with some of the fan base being divided over whether he should stay or go. To me, that's always a bad sign. I'm not saying the majority of a fan base will always want a manager to stay, but it's it's really weird as well, because if you look from the outside, and probably to Birmingham fans, we're one of the most informed sides in the league, along with yourselves. So
Yeah.
to other fans, we must look insane.
So, I mean, you've got a fair to say a mixed start to the season. So, he's played 10. You have won 5, drawn 2, lost 3. So, good haul of points at where you are with 17 points at the moment. What do you think your weaknesses have actually been? Why do you think? I mean, because I've got to say, when I started the season and we were all discussing who we thought would be there or thereabouts, yourselves were up there because you had a great end to last season. The playoff games were great to see, because as a team of your size, having a full stadium, fans backing you to the absolute hilt, was just what we were expecting to come up against. But it has been very mixed. But then this league, to me, is tough. There is no outright winner of this league, and there is no team that should say we are going to walk it. And I know some Birmingham players have already gone and said, "Oh, we're bigger than the league. We should be in the championship, etc." As fans, we all want that, but I think we're all realistic. Yes, we should be there or thereabouts, but it's not a given. So, what do you think it is? What do you think that this situation at Bolton is because of at the moment? And do you really think your manager's on the brink?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, the manager, I think that the main problem is it's just he's set in his ways. I mean, if you look at the games we've lost, and like you say, you're mentioning the back end of the season, we play some really good football, but it's the playoff final that was the main game where we were outclassed by Des Buckingham and on Oxford. I mean, all the credit in the world to Des Buckingham. The tactical shape and style of play set up in that final completely neutralised us. But what the concerning thing was from that game is that Ian Evatt, from particular times this season, hasn't learnt from that, and he still thinks this way of football is the way to play, because he says himself he loves Pep Guardiola and he emulates him, but he doesn't also take on board his willingness to kind of make tweaks. So yes,
Mhm.
Pep has this style of play, but he's always making tweaks, whereas Ian Evatt is very much, it's got to be the same no matter who we're playing. And it's okay, it's like, say, last weekend's game's a good example. We're at home to 23rd in the league, and we've got a back five. Now, I know it's a very attacking back five with the two wing backs, but you really can think to yourself, well, if they're going to sit men behind the ball, maybe a back four is more sensible. But this is the thing: when we play you on Tuesday, it'll be exactly the same thing. It'll be a back five, and Burton and Birmingham are incredibly different games, and we shouldn't really be setting up the exactly same way.
So tell us a bit about the side then. So you mentioned there that you set up with a back five. What's the rest of the structure like, and what type of players should we be looking out for? And we always say it, but where are the weaknesses?
Yeah, well, our weakness at the moment is definitely injuries. I mean, half the squad seems to be banged up, bruised, and everything else. Our back three, I mean, against Burton involved a right wing back at centre back in Dacres Cogley, so there's a definite weakness there in that. Yes, we've got Ricardo Santos, who's a man mountain and incredibly quick, and the other side George Johnston, who is an incredibly great centre back, but if you're looking at getting the ball up, and especially when you've got a player like Lucas Jukovic, I mean, it may not start for you, but I'd be really tempted if I was Birmingham to start him and just stick him to Dacres Cogley, because that's an easy win every single ball up the pitch. like I say, we mentioned before, Sean's a fantastic winger. And on the other side, it might most likely be Randall Williams, who had a good game. Well, half a good game. He was really weird. He had an excellent performance in that second half, goal and assist, but before that was shocking. So something to look out for, inconsistency there. But it all depends on who shows up on the day. I mean, as a four strike options to pick from, and look at both teams. I think if you look at Birmingham and Bolton, some of the best strikers to choose from. I mean, like I say, the fact that you can play Alfie May and you can, bring off Jukovic off the bench. You've got Jay Stansfield, who as it looks like who has all the potential in the world, and it's an amazing coup for you. And then you look at our side, Dion Charles, who gets 20 goals a season, has done it back-to-back seasons. Aaron Collins, who can do some incredible things with the ball. McAtee, who we've seen what he did at Barnsley last season, and Adebayo, who it seems to be our target man. So I think the main weakness will probably be our injuries, and maybe towards the end of the game where we can't bring on as many impactful players, which has been a problem previously for us. But I think that's again the key to Birmingham could beating us is the players you can bring off the bench, and the squad depth you have is phenomenal for League One.
I mean, what we've seen from Birmingham so far this season is high press, constant pressure on a team. It's fair to say the first 15, 20 minutes of a game, I don't think we've actually seen Birmingham playing the way that we know that they can do yet. It's really, really strange. It's a role reversal of last season. But after that 15, 20-minute period, it's then like somebody flicks a switch and we are, again, really on top of teams. And the thing that you hear and see is that actually we've put that much pressure on the team that they weaken as they get into the second half, because it's like the amount of pressure that's put on the team, the amount of work that they have to put behind it. And with the possession that we hold and tend to retain across games, it is a lot of chasing of the ball. So it sounds as though we may see some so we say fruits of the work again in the second half of the game, and hopefully on Tuesday that be the case. But you've mentioned obviously your strikers and the fact that they are capable of getting 15, 20 goals a season. Something that we can honestly say we have lacked massively. Lukas Jukovic has been our staunch striker that's always been there or thereabouts. He actually doesn't really make the squad at the moment. We tend to have Stansfield, May, and Dykes as our strike force as such, but goals are coming from all angles, which is awesome and something we're not expecting. And haven't again really seen over the past few years. What about, so you mentioned defence? You tend to play five with two wing backs, bombing forwards. How does that fit for the team? And you mentioned that the manager very rarely changes it. You just know Sod's Law is going to change it on Tuesday now and make us both look silly. But what's the general consensus? So you mentioned Dak Cogley there playing in the centre, but as like a makeshift defender. Is that again what we should expect to see? Do you think coming to Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, it all really depends on player fitness. Like I said, the back five and the way we set up, it is very much designed to have, our wingers push on and overlap our, two strikers or one of our midfielders if they pushed onto the wing on an attack. But it's definitely got its drawbacks where obviously we're lucky that, Santos as a player has the build and the speed to kind of be left back on his own. But at the same time, there are some incredibly quick players, and you are just kind of playing a dangerous game with Dakres Cogley. I think that the problem will be, or the way I can definitely see Birmingham scoring is on a counter and catching us in silly possession. We've seen it a couple times with Bolton this season. Charlton's a great example where from a goal kick we're just giving it straight to the opposition and they're then shooting it and bagging. So the key for us is if you're going to play with a high press, is not falling into these traps that we have done before and getting calm, relaxed on the ball. It's one thing a lot of Bolton fans want, and I think this team is capable of doing it, is playing quick but with purpose. So obviously, long ball we know is something that isn't really successful. I mean, depending on who we've got up front, but we do have a quality of player where we can move the ball quickly and catch teams out. But
Yeah.
so far this season, we're not really doing it, and it is a shame because to me and to a lot of Bolton fans, that's probably the way we will be successful in this league.
And what were your aspirations starting the season? I mean, obviously, off the back of last season, I would have thought that you would be saying, actually, do you know what? We're going to be there or thereabouts again. But really, we should be pushing for one of the top two positions this time around. And how do you think the season will end? And I know you're basing it on the way things are at the moment, but we'll revisit this as the season goes by. But what's your thoughts at the moment, and where did you start the season thinking you would be?
Yeah, so I was one of the very silly Bolton fans, and I went and said it on our podcast that I thought we would finish top. Now, that was purely based on I thought Birmingham were going to struggle to begin with, with a lot of turnover and maybe get falling into that trap of League One football. But evidently, it's you've had a fantastic start, so that's theory might be out the window. But my bare minimum was promotion, and to say we may not look as far off at the moment, but we have quite, had an easier set of games than most teams around us probably have. So we could definitely fall a bit off the pace. And I think we're like 8 points off yourselves on top spot. So maybe that already is looking quite a gap. But towards the end of the season, I think now that the bare minimum has to be playoffs, and we've just maybe got to use our experience now. We've been in the
Hmm.
playoffs for 2 seasons in a row, and we know what kind of football is needed. But you're always going to have that big fear now of when you get to that playoff final is you don't want another repeat. And the shame for me about Everett is I could see him lining up exactly the same way with exactly the same tactic and expecting a different result. So as much as I'd love the playoffs, I don't know how much I could deal with another playoff loss.
I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, the playoffs for me, they were always they're horrible, aren't they? They are that proverbial
Mm.
lottery because you could be the team finishing third in the league and yet get the team sixth going through, and it's horrible to be in a position of. Luckily, we've never lost in a final that we've been to, but the semi-finals is always so. You come away thinking, oh God, what could we have done different, and how things could be, following the season. But hopefully, we're neither of us. It'd be nice if neither of us were in that position at the end of the season. So, I mean, how can we go on without talking as well about that game? And I say that game because every Birmingham fan will remember it. Um, that game where actually the player we've mentioned on numerous occasions scored against us. Yes, Lucas Jukovic nearly sent us into the division we're in now. Um, but what a game! I've got to be honest. On that particular day, I couldn't listen. I really really thought that was it. It was over and done with, and I couldn't listen. I wasn't lucky enough as well to get a ticket. But for those thousands of Birmingham fans that travelled, it was a joyous day. And I think many a Bolton fan has said to me in the past, it's an atmosphere that they have never ever had replicated since at the stadium. So were you there? Were you one of those that was celebrating the fact that Bolton were relegating Birmingham?
No, I mean, to my credit, I wouldn't have been too old. I would have probably been mid-teens. So I was there though, and I still stand by it's probably one of the best scenes I've seen when the equaliser went in, because obviously at that point of the season, we were comfortable and we'd staved off relegations. So you always think to yourself, there's not really much in it for us. It's not like the Premier League where you think, oh well, maybe if we can try and win and go a space up, it's an extra so much million. It's probably pennies compared to that in the Championship. So it was quite nice to see yourself stay up and, like I say, see a great celebration. I don't really like relegating anybody. It's only a few teams I'd like to see us relegating. And I just don't think we have the capacity for that. So no, it was great to see the limbs, as you'd like to call them, and it is always nice when we play each other. You do see them pop up on the socials, and you get a good reminder every time.
Indeed, and I think this is the one good thing about ourselves is we always have good followings at both of the games. So as we go to Tuesday night, and again, what's going to be a great sized attendance at St Andrews at Knighthead Park. In fact, again, we might be close to another sellout, which would be absolutely phenomenal. But the thing I like is, you can always rely on Bolton to allocate a large away allocation to a game, and it's always good. I think it's just nice to be able to say that you can get to games, because it's very hard in this division at the moment. You've got to be within the lucky real, I suppose, 1,500 to say that you can see a game on average in this league this season. And from a Birmingham fans perspective, there are people fighting for tickets all the time. So it will be nice to get to the ground and hopefully again have a large allocation to come and back the boys when we play. But we've mentioned, Djukovic a couple of times, a player that has represented both clubs. And as always on the away end, I like to challenge my opposition to come up with 5 players that have played for both clubs, whether that be via transfers between the clubs, either loans or permanents, or actually represented as well away from, maybe a loan that's come from a different club but has represented both. So, challenge set for you. Can you name 5? You can't have Djukovic, I'm afraid. We've said his name so many times. I can't give you that one. It's not allowed.
But it was so subtly mentioned. We didn't give anything away with that one.
I'll tell you what, if you can't get up with a 5th, then you can have him as your 5th. I want to see how many you can get beforehand. So, yeah, far away.
Yeah, so
I
think we've got a current player. I'm sure Dacres Cogley has played for Birmingham at some point.
Has indeed.
Fantastic. That's an easy one out of the way. Fabrice Muamba, I believe after Arsenal he went to Birmingham.
Absolute legend, and I think in his coaching role and stuff now he's really coming through and showing what he can do as well. What a very, very sad day that was when what happened to him, came along. But so glad, because he was just the light of all games. He was such a nice guy, and a pleasure to be around when he was at Birmingham. So yeah, Fabrice, you've mentioned Cogley, you've mentioned.
Who else? We will have Paul Robinson. He'll have
Indeed.
played for both.
The legend that is Robbo, and friend of Tilton Talk Show, been on a couple of times now, and what an absolute geezer. And nice to see that he's got himself a role back at his old club, Watford, as well now.
No, he's having a really good time, and I mean, there's a great image of him that used to be in. We're going back many years now in Bolton, where he was stood over a player celebrating with his arms out, and he was just passion personified, that man. So he's definitely good to see he's doing well. Now this is where things get tricky, because this problem is there's so many, but I just know that some of them are wrong. I might be off. I think Zach Knight. Has Zach Knight done both?
Zach Knight did at one point, but it was only a very short period, I think.
Right. So maybe I'll claim him then. If I can. See, really, really pushing it out. How many am I on now? Is it 3 or 4?
So I mean, do I give you the Zach Knight? Yeah, I'll give you that. So you're on 4 at the moment. And
yeah, if you give me Zach Knight, I won't take Djukovic, don't you? Yeah, I won't take him. I'll take one or the other. It'd be unfair to take both. Really done you badly. This Jesus. Who am I thinking of?
I mean, I can give you some hints that it's been a proper mixture of positions and players across the teams. However, it does seem as though that you've had, or between us actually, we've really had a tendency for defence and midfielders to be the main positions that people have worked in, but you have also had a goalkeeper as well.
Oh, goalkeeper. Is it Ian Walker? Would it have been? No.
Uh,
Oh, that was I'm thinking Leicester, Anna.
the
Uh
goalkeeper, he signed for you on a free transfer back in 2001, 2002.
oh
And he's
Jesus
a
Christ.
true gentleman, gentle giant.
2001, 2002. I mean, at the time, would have probably been 5 or 6, so it's really pushing the memories. Uh, the only keeper I can think of from that time is Kevin Poole.
It was indeed Kevin Bolton.
Kevin Poole, Jesus.
Yeah. And again, he didn't really get too much representation from Birmingham, but was a true gent, and yes, represented both clubs. So to give you a few other names as well, and there are some phenomenal ones in there, and I can
Oh,
guarantee
gonna make
you'll
me
kick
look bad now.
yourself. You're going to kick yourself when you hear some of these. So Jonathan Grimes represented obviously
Yeah.
both clubs. Came to yourself on a loan transfer. Jason Lowe again as well. He was a free transfer from Birmingham to yourselves. We got Viv Solomon Otterbull, came to yourself on loan. Nicky Hunt, loan transfer
Oh,
from Bolton to Birmingham. You've mentioned Fabrice Baramba, but in that same season, that was Nicky Hunt. So there we kind of had that swap
all
over.
right.
The season before that, though, two great players from Bolton to Birmingham. Um, Again, what both of them for me, brilliant when they turned out in a Birmingham shirt. One guy that would run through a brick wall in Bruno and Gotti.
Oh,
What a centre half he was. And the other centre half, and again as well, friend of the show, spoken to him now, Radhi Jady, and a legend for yourselves. Another centre half, David Oldsworth.
yeah.
So
Jesus. I've missed loads.
you've mentioned Kevin Paul, but when we go back to the 2000-2001 season, you also had left back Simon Charlton from Birmingham join you on a free transfer. And prior to that, and probably will be well before your days, but names that you will know without fail because they are true legends of the game. And that is 1979, 1980. Frank Worthington
Yeah.
came to Birmingham. And finally, this guy really is football throughout. He is a true gent, a great talker, and if you get a chance to ever get him onto your podcast, I'd highly recommend, and that's Gordon Taylor. What a guy he was. And when he joined us on Tilton Talk, his stories were phenomenal. So I can highly recommend those. So we've had some real good players, and they're just a few. We would have had others, but they're the ones that to me really stand out. So Tuesday night, then, like I say, another large attendance at St Andrews at Knighthead Park, a raucous atmosphere. Birmingham looking to continue on the run that they are on, and the home form to continue. So, are you able to now tell me a little bit more about your thoughts about the game and where you think, what does your heart say and what does your head say the result will be?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say pretty much exactly the same thing most of us uh, will have said on the Trotter Chatter podcast. I think it's going to be a massacre, and I think Birmingham are going to run away with it. It's probably quite surprising to yourself and maybe some Birmingham fans, but I just don't really have a lot of faith in our ability to turn up and sneak something out of the game. I mean, I'd be thrilled with a draw, and obviously if you can give me a win, God, that'd that'd really top it off. But I just think it's a game where we're very likely to maybe give one away and then just start to capitulate. And because I think if we go 1-0 down in a game like this, I really can't see us bringing it back. So I think it's my head says it's not going to be as bad, and maybe Birmingham will just run away 1-0 or 2-0. And I really don't think we'll score. I think we've got the players to and the ability to, but there's just a lot of tension and a lot of not living up to potential in the way we're playing, and I think that's going to be evident on Tuesday. And with Everett not in the dugout, it's going to be a lot tougher to kind of rile up the players if we are 1-0 down at half time. So I'm not looking forward to the result, but I am looking forward to the atmosphere and like I say, getting to visit St Andrews.
So, I mean, I'm going to go for a cautious. Well, let's just say my head says I want to go for a cautious 2-0. Um, I think it'll be potentially closer than you think. Again, it depends on how quickly Bolton come out of blocks, whether you get at us as a team like others have done within that first spell of the game to kind of try and get on the front foot and build from it. My heart says I'd love nothing more than to give a spanking to the team, but I just don't think I don't think this is the time. I don't think this is the time, and it may be closer than we both think. So I'll stick with a 2-0. Hopefully, I'll see more goals. But hey, if I don't, and it's 3 points, that's all that matters. You mentioned there that it's good to see St Andrews. I take it that you are coming to the game.
I am indeed, yeah. I'm jetting off straight from work, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in what will be the worst traffic ever, because there's 3 games in and around Birmingham, and what is better than to try and travel on that night?
I was going to say, I mean, you couldn't have chosen a worse one to, especially come down. I guess you'll come down the M6 motorway.
Yep.
When I won't mention their name because it's a swear word, but the team over in the B6 postcode are also playing at home, and obviously you've got Birmingham. So safe travels down. If you get there early enough, then I'd highly recommend having a wander round, because since you've last been down, the changes at St Andrews at Knighthead Park are just immense. First thing is you'll be having safe standing. Second one, we've got a fan park outside the Cop, which we do have a mixture of fans in there. So if you get an opportunity, come and have a butchers at that. There's obviously a huge new club shop which you just cannot miss when you turn up at the away end. And yeah, it's just totally different inside the stadium as well. So forget the scoreboard in the corner. We now have 2 super-sized ones above each of the stands. And shock horror, a sound system that works. So bring on a good Tuesday evening, safe journey down. I say it to everyone, but I hope you do have the worst game of your season, bar one other, at St Andrews at Knighthead Park on Tuesday evening. The other one being at your place next year. And bar that, thank you very much again for joining us, Luke. Been an absolute pleasure, and keep right on.
Thank you.